طيب, you ready? Ready? Bismillah, alhamdulillah, salatu wassalamu ala rasulillah, amma ba'd. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Question before we pause for Salat al-Maghrib and brief refreshments was regarding the tafsir of the opening ayat of Surah Rum, that the Romans have been defeated. And afterwards, shortly afterwards, years later, they would sayaglibun. They would be victorious. Okay, and the believers being happy and taking pride and rejoicing in the support and help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. To the end of those noble ayat in the beginning of that noble surah. What's meant by that? Were the Persians not Muslims at that time? So on and so forth. Like anything else in the Quran and Kareem, these ayat, you have verses over which the scholars of Islam agree. This is what's meant. These verses were sent down concerning this incident. They agree on. And you have other things in which they have different views. That happened in this year. No, Allah was talking about this individual, so on and so forth. And the people never have ikhtilaf of the Quran, the ikhtilaf which is doubt about the Quran being from Allah. And that the Quran is miraculous. And that nothing can come close. No one can accurately imitate and mimic the Quran. But they have differences with regards to certain specifics. Certain specifics. Alright? So with regards to these ayats, like any other ayats, there are things which the scholars will agree on, and things of which they will what? Have more than one view. As far as that which they agree on, or not even agree on, but to keep things in brief, the Romans were defeated by the Persians. Before we get into when, how, so on and so forth, we have to understand the historical context of this statement of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why? What were the Romans at that time? And what were the Persians at that time? And what's meant by Ar-Rum? People living in Rome, or the Arabs having a general usage of the term Rum or Rumi for a certain area, regardless of their religion or ethnicity. Just like we call people different things, regardless. It's not always right or correct, but it is the way it is. Many people that are uneducated or just speaking in casual terms, I'm not saying I believe this or this, we're just saying what people say. They see someone that's from the Far East, they say, oh yeah, it's Chinese. And that person is not from China. The person's from Malaysia. The person can be from Cambodia. The person can be from Laos. The person can be Korean or Japanese, and the list goes on, but they just say what? Chinese. Okay? Or the usage of the word of the term Asian. In the UK, when the brothers say you want to go to an Asian restaurant, you want to have Asian food, in most cases they're talking about something not what you're thinking. You're thinking that you're going to a halal Chinese restaurant, but they're talking about Pakistani food. And technically speaking, Pakistan is a part of Asia. But that's not how we use the term. That's not what? We use the term Asian, meaning Korean, Chinese, Japanese, so on and so forth. But technically that's a huge continent. And there are many countries that are included in what? Asia. India is a part of what? Asia. But we say Indian food or Indian restaurant. So people use different things. So the Arabs, they use the term Rum in different ways. All right? But the general concept over which they agree is that the Romans, quote unquote, were generally Christians. Ahlul Kitab. They were Christians. And the Furs or Faris, the Persians, and that's a broad statement, Persia, and many countries included in that, they were generally mushrikun. They were wathaniyun, they were idol worshippers. So both of them are kuffar, both of them. They're non-Muslims. But if we had to pick one of the two groups who we would want to be successful, hypothetically speaking, we would want the what? Christians, because they're closer to Tawheed than the mushrikun. Obviously, before anyone says anything now, we know that there's some detail with regards to that now. Whereas there's certain Christians which are worse than the Muslims than some pagans or idol worshippers. It's reality nowadays. But the general concept of they are closer. They're what? Closer than the people of shirk. Are we understand this? So therefore, the Romans being defeated, does that necessarily mean the people in Rome, the Romans versus the Persians, or Christians that were in the peninsula, Christians that were attached and associated with the actual Romans? Are we to understand this? In general, the ulama of Islam, they say, is that they were defeated early on, in the early days, whether it was before the Prophet was made a prophet or in the early days of Islam. And then later on, they would be victorious over the Persians. And the Muslims will be happy, and they will be what? They would take pride in it. And other interpretations say is that the believers will be happy of them being victorious over their enemies. And nothing to do with the Persians and the Romans. Are we to understand this? So years later, the Romans being victorious and the Persians being defeated, it was something that the believers were what? Happy for, because they were closer to the Muslims than the Persians. And it doesn't mean years later after Persia was opened up. We know that happened in the time of the Sahaba, in the time of Umar radiallahu anhu, Uthman and other companions, the battle of Qadisiyah and things like this. Huh? That's in brief, the tafsir of those ayats. Wallahu a'lam. Moving forward, alaikum salam. Question we'll take from the floor here. It says, how do you get past having husnul dhann, alaikum salam, in people that are not blood but under the same roof you live in? How do you get past having husnul dhann? Al-Muhim, husnul dhann doesn't mean you being naive. It doesn't mean that you're naive and that you're unaware and you're heedless. It doesn't mean that you're stupid and that you're slow. Husnul dhann does not mean you deny reality. I have good thoughts of my brother. That's the default. Innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. That doesn't mean that the court is going to deny hardcore evidence that this person committed murder. But he's not guilty of the murder until it's proven. So the first concept of husnul dhann is the default. My brother is not a drug dealer until proven. Not, yeah, he's selling drugs. I know it. I can feel it. And then I just need to prove it. Everyone understand this? So you have husnul dhann for your brother from the get-go. Secondly, husnul dhann doesn't mean that you say your eyes are lying to you. You make an excuse for your brother. You don't search and spy and sneak on your brother. And you give it a good interpretation. I saw the brother and, you know, he smelled like alcohol. Make an excuse for him. Maybe some alcohol spilled on him. It's possible. It happened to me once. One day I was in, I think it was Long Island. We were at a place trying to get some water ice, what we call it, or they call them ices, Italian ices. And some non-Muslims, they drove by and they threw a can of beer at us. They threw a can of beer at us and they said something and they drove by. Obviously they kept going, they didn't stop. It was a cowardly thing, they just kept going. But the can of beer, it fell on the sidewalk and it spilled on my shoes and a little bit on my throat. A little bit got on my throat. So you make an excuse for the brother. Maybe something spilled on him. Maybe some cough syrup. Allah Alam. Give a brother an excuse until there's no room to prove, except for the fact that, unfortunately, Brother Fulan was drinking. He was drinking. But you don't try to rush to that conclusion. And husnul dhann, many people, they misunderstand the term and the word. Husnul dhann means that you're aware, but you try to make an excuse and you try to make yourself heedless. At-taghaful. Ghafla is one thing, and then there's at-taghaful. I clearly saw you doing it, but I act like what? I didn't see it. because I know that you didn't want me to see it. Something crazy popped up on your phone and act like what? I didn't see it. He's trying to hide it. Oh, subhanAllah, somebody had my phone. Oh, what are you talking about? I saw what came up on the phone. I'm not stupid. So you act like you don't see it. Everybody understand this? Ghafla is when you're just heedless. It's something that's dead smack in your face and, oh, I didn't see it. No. Allah prohibits us from being from the ghafilin. But it doesn't mean that we don't practice ghafla, in which you don't snoop and look too much for your brothers into your brother's stuff and you make a good excuse for him. But husn al-dhan, the one who taught us to have husn al-dhan is also the one who said cut the hand off of the thief and whip the back of the drunkard and stone the fornicator or the adulterer. I would understand this? So there is a limit. Husn al-dhan doesn't mean that you become what? Heedless and naive and you reject the truth. Everyone understand this? I'm not spying on my son, but I caught my son looking and watching something really, really bad. I have to say something to my son, but I'm not going to what? Go and what? Spy on him and dig through his personal private things. There's a difference between the two, and Allah knows best. Question from online says, AA, Assalamu alaikum, from Phoenix, Arizona. How do you know a decision you made was the right one? Sometimes you don't know. Sometimes things remain a mystery or a secret. Al-qadru sirrullahi fala nakshifu. Some of the companions would say that the qadr is the secret of Allah, which we don't try to unveil. It's the secret of Allah. Leave it as it is. Maybe you made the right decision, maybe you didn't. Keep living your life. Keep walking in a positive direction. If you feel you made a mistake, try to fix it. If you're unsure, then just keep doing what you're doing, which is positive. And don't get stuck on the past. What difference does it make whether it was a mistake or not? What difference does it make right now? Is it changing how you live now? It's one thing. Or you just want to be sad and have grief and say, oh man, I knew I shouldn't have did it. I knew I shouldn't have did it. Oh man. So what's important is the current state. Everyone understand this? And Allah knows best. What are the appropriate titles for stepchildren to call step-parents? It depends. Stepchildren may call you brother fulan, uncle fulan. They may call you by your first name if you're okay with that, if you don't feel that's not disrespectful. Okay, brother Kareem, uncle Kareem, okay? Or in some cases, and Allah knows best, Allahu Alam, if you have young stepchildren and you're actually raising them, and they call you father or mother, that's one thing. You can call someone your father, your mother who isn't your father or your mother. You can give someone an honorific title, just like you call someone an uncle, who isn't your uncle. Overseas, different countries, they see an old woman walking down the street. She needs something that says, Naam Ummi. How can I help you, Ummi? My mother. And of course, it may has nothing to do with that woman, but out of respect. And you may call a sheikh al-walid, the father. So it depends. It depends. Question says, Ian, Assalamu alaikum, Mufti Ian from Melbourne, Australia. To what extent can jahl, ignorance of the religion, be an excuse for a Muslim on the Day of Judgment? The concept of al-udhr bil-jahl has become a very hot topic. And many people, they have all different types of confusion and mixing and jumbling. What Ibn Taymiyyah said, what the Salaf al-Salih said, what Sheikh bin Baz said, what this scholar says, what these politicians say, they mix it all up in one pot and they stir it around. Al-udhr bil-jahl, without any question, is from the Quran and the Sunnah. Of a person not being punished for them not knowing what's right and what's wrong. وَلَا يَظْلِمُ رَبُّكَ أَحَدًا وَمَا اللَّهُ يُرِيدُ ظُلْمًا لِلْعَالَمِينَ وَمَا كُنَّا مُعَذِّبِينَ حَتَّى نَبْعَثَ رَسُولًا. And there are many ayats, Allah says, that we don't punish people until we send them messengers. Your Lord oppresses no one, etc. Okay? مَا أَنَا بِظَلَّامٍ لِلْعَبِيدِ. I don't oppress my servants, Allah says. So the general concept is from the deen. But that, once more, does not mean that there's naiveness. And we make an excuse for open, plain kufr and shirk. Kufran is bawah, as clear as day. And we say, al-udhr bil-jahl. That doesn't mean that the act isn't kufr. That doesn't mean that the act isn't kufr. He may be excused, but it doesn't mean that that's not kufr akbar. That's a statement of apostasy. There's no udhr in it. Maybe he's excused, but that's kufr akbar. And we don't make an excuse for the act. And even a person who does the act, we may say, hypothetically speaking, he's a kafir. He's apostatized from Islam. Maybe he had an excuse. Maybe he was taught that. Maybe he didn't know. That's between him and Allah on the day of judgment. That's between him and Allah on the day of judgment. But outwardly, he's a kafir. This person broke the rules. He stole. There's no excuse to be made. He stole a certain amount in a certain way. The punishment is placed upon him. Maybe he actually was innocent. Maybe it was his twin brother who did it. Maybe he had a necessity to steal. That's between him and what? Allah on the day of judgment. We deal with the proof and the evidence, the science, the facts that we have in front of us. So many people, they are imbalanced with regards to this issue, in which they say that nothing's kufr, nothing's shirk, nothing is kufr akbar, al-udhr bil-jahl. No one is apostatized from Islam, al-udhr bil-jahl. That's wrong. The way of the Salaf and Ahlul Hadith is not the way of the Murji'ah. Actions are a part of Iman. And the reality that people will make kufr and leave the deen and apostatize. That is from the deen. So sometimes there's udhr bil-jahl, and other times we say this is what? Yuhkam alayhi bil-zahir. It's based off of what is apparent. This person made sujood to this cross. He's worshiping this cross. What's in his heart? Is he really worshiping Allah? Allahu alam. Outwardly, that's kufr akbar. So there's a balance, and Allah knows best. Question says, if you have a child of age that stay awake after praying Fajr and do bad things after everyone goes back to sleep, what would you advise? I sometimes consider not waking him up out of fear that he would do things. No, wake him up for Fajr, but teach him or teach her. Discipline them, reward them, punish them, talk to them, befriend them, see the psychology. Why are you doing these bad acts? Are you starving for attention? Are you hungry? You want more food? You feel like this person is doing wrong to you? Someone did something at school? Try to handle the situation. Them getting up for Fajr is a good thing. Them staying up after Fajr is a good thing. But fix the situation. Mend this situation by Allah's permission, and Allah knows best. Question says, Arba, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, ya Shaykhana, wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, barakallahu feek. AH, how do I know if I'm sincere? Please list where you're from. FA, from Houston, Texas. If I get taught by a jinn who is a sahabi, do I become a tabi'i? If you get taught by a jinn who's a companion, will you be a tabi'i? What difference does it make? What difference does it make? What difference does it make? What is it changing in your daily life? Is it making you closer to Allah, better to Allah, or not? Is it having an effect on you or not? I mean, understand this? You have to ask yourself the critical question. Many people from the tabi'een, all of them weren't righteous. There are people who left Islam from companions, who apostatized when they went to Habasha. Just because you're of a generation doesn't make you pious and righteous. But if you are pious and righteous, then that's a different story. So look at what effect is it having on you. As far as the communication between humans and jinn in our modern times and in the past as well, that's extremely dangerous. You're playing with fire, literally. Literally. Be careful. The jinn, they may come to you as a Muslim, I'm a believer, they may teach you something, you feel comfortable with them. You let your guard down with them, the next thing you know, they start tricking you and getting you to do acts of disbelief or kufr or shirk or bid'ah or haram acts. And now you're in debt or indebted to that jinn. No different than the pop culture, the media, huh? I Dream a Genie and Aladdin, it's real. You rub the lamp, the genie comes out. Genie, jinni, a jinaya, a female jinn, jinniya. They get you out of a tough situation, they bring you something. And now you have to repay the favor. No, I'm not doing that, that's haram. You didn't think about that when you asked me for a favor, did you? Now you're stuck. And if you refuse to do the act, those jinn may what? Wreak havoc on you. And try to possess you and all other types of things. So there should be no contact between a sound-minded Muslim and a jinni in 2019. If there is contact, hypothetically speaking, they came to you. They helped you out. They brought you gasoline. You were stuck on the side of the road. It was freezing cold. Hypothetically speaking, you thank Allah, you thank them, and that's it. You don't keep, let me contact that jinni again. No. Because jinn lie. They play games. They take on forms and images. And they may present themselves as a believer when they do you a favor. And when it's time for you to repay the favor, they'll come at their real nature as a kafir. So be mindful of that. I didn't want the question read out loud. However, I would like for the question to be addressed, please. I'm confused. If the question isn't read out loud, how do I address it? I don't get it. If you email us the question, that's a different story. It's confidential, it's discreet. But if you send me a piece of paper and you want me to address the question, how can I do that unless I do what? Read it out loud. Next question says, if a spouse is purposely evil to stepkids and lies to husband, teen asking, please advise. So we have a spouse who's evil to stepkids, a stepmom, and lies to the husband. Tell the father. Make a disclaimer. I'm not trying to ruin your marriage, Abby. I'm happy that you got remarried. Would I want you to be with Umi? Yes, I would. But I'm happy that you got remarried. But Sister Fulana, I'm telling you, is lying behind your back. I'm telling you, Abby, I caught her in a lie. I'm telling you, Abby, when she's not around, she curses at us. She does this. She hits us. But bring your proof. Bring your what? Bring your proof and make your disclaimer. Because the first thing that you're going to be accused of is being jealous. And let's keep it real. If there's a man who's living with a woman, and the woman is a great liar, and she's evil and mean, and the man has no clue and no idea, then that's a deficiency in him. That goes to show you that his awareness as a man is not up there like that. You understand? Someone who made a lie, someone who lost their temper, that's one thing. People hide things from people, but you're living with someone who's a habitual liar, or someone who's evil. Like, what's the story? Was it Cinderella? The evil stepmom? Right? Evil woman, and you don't have no clue that she's treating your children like this? That shows you that you're living in la la land. So obviously they're going to say something. He's going to say something. Oh, you're jealous, or you're trying to make trouble. Make a disclaimer. I'm not jealous, Abby, and I'm not trying to start trouble. But Sister Fulana is doing bad things behind your back. Prove it. Your father may listen, alhamdulillah, and if he doesn't listen, you've done your what? You've done your job, and you've warned him. قَدْ أَنذَرَ قَدْ أَعْذَرَ مَنْ أَنذَرَ. The Arabs, they say. He who warns has made an excuse. He who warns has made an excuse. I told you, Abby, she was stealing your money. I told you she was, that she was evil. She's not pious and righteous as she's in front of you. When you're not around, she's a witch. Or maybe what? Something else you may call her. Everyone understand this? This is reality. Let's keep it what? Let's be real. And when she's in front of you, it's niqab and gloves and kitab and tawheed and pious and righteous. But when you're not around, she's evil. Later on, things happen. He sees the light. He says, I told you, Abby. I wasn't lying. I wasn't making it up. But make sure you clear your slate, because you're going to be accused of what? Of making something up or lying or something. So bring your proof and evidence, huh? And Allah knows best. And most importantly, be patient. Have sabr. Have sabr upon the situation. Moving forward. Question is from IT, Detroit, Michigan. Can you take a full submerged ghusl in the shower? I believe we answered that the other day. Generally, yes. CTG, Bangladesh. Is it true that our prophet slapped a boy in his back to get rid of the jinn in him? Allahu alam about that. Allah knows best. Allahu alam. Al-Muhimmin al-Islam. Physical discipline is permissible if there's a need. And if it's done in a specific manner. If there's a need, and if it's done in a specific manner. And oftentimes when you're reciting on someone who's possessed by a jinn, sometimes you have to use a bit of physical what? Force. Along with the recitation of the Quran and the adhkar, forcing that evil jinn to leave that person's body. And Allah knows best. Question says, MA, come from initials MA from Mexico City. Which is better, sadaqah or gifts? Neither of the two. Do both. Both. Give sadaqah and give gifts. You have $100, give $75 to the poor people, and a $25 gift to someone who's wealthy. Mix it up. If it's a situation in which is one of the two extremes, give the money to the poor people. Because the poor people, they don't have food or clean water to drink. They may not have sanitary napkins and Pampers and things like this. What's going to happen if you don't give a wealthy person a gift? Nothing is harmed. No one's harmed. But those people need the money. But if it is an extreme situation, then you do both. And we all know the virtues of giving gifts. and the effects of giving gifts in Al-Islam. And Allah knows best. Question says, Fadl.
In the hadith of the hadith of Aisha, where she narrated about the 11 women who said they were going to tell something about their husbands that won't hold anything back. Could you explain a little bit more about, is there any history behind the hadith, or if you refer to a good book explaining the hadith in detail?
Email me. Email me, inshallah.
Okay.
Please. MK, Sydney, Australia. What is the ruling on loyalty? Loyalty sometimes is obligatory. Sometimes it's recommended. Sometimes loyalty is haram or disliked. Loyalty to Allah and His Rasul, of course. Loyalty to the righteous, highest believers. Loyalty to your husband or your wife. Alright? Loyalty to your teacher, your ustad. That's one thing. Loyalty to a people just because they're of your race. Different story. Muslim or not, but they're my race, your country. Different story. Loyalty to a kafir. Religious type of loyalty. You may have a general loyalty with a business partner. You've been doing business with this non-Muslim for 10 years. You've never had any problems. A new merchant comes along. He offers a lower price or a better product. He says, I'm going to stick with my man over here. You're loyal to him. The reward of good is nothing but the what? Good. So it depends on what type of loyalty you mean. Loyalty of the deen, loyalty of the dunya. It depends on the level of loyalty. It depends on the level and the type of loyalty, and Allah knows best. Question says, LS, Columbia, Missouri. May Allah bless you, Sheikh. This is a continuation of a previous question. At what point is an outing considered travel? Is it the distance or the norms of the people? Most of the ulama of Islam, they use mileage. Most of the ulama of Islam use mileage. And others say it's based off of the condition of the people. You have to go with the view which you feel is safest and closest, and Allah knows best. ZU, Beham, UK. What can a 20-year-old brother do to reduce thinking about women? I'm affected in my studies and work due to this. Try to get married. Make sure you marry a sister that's pleasing to your eyes. If you have this condition, which many men have, if not most of them, those who acknowledge it or those who act like it doesn't exist, you need to marry a sister that's pleasing to you. Marry a woman who has her character, her religion, and also what? Physically pleasing to you. Okay? If you can't get married, then fast. Stay busy with hifd. Alright? Force yourself to take upon different classes and responsibilities, which you have no choice but to be busy. Alright? Develop self-control, most importantly. Because you can have 4 wives. You can have 4 wives and still be mentally perverted. You can have 4 wives and still be extremely hypersexual. You can have 4 wives and still lust and not lower your gaze. It's possible. So self-control is the anchor to the ship. That's the anchor, self-control. Taqwa, muraqabah. And obviously it doesn't happen overnight, but you have to what? Strive for it. You got to think about it. You got to try not to think about it. It may be problemsome in the beginning, but you have to take some steps, huh? And maybe, as I said, there's a problem that you're not married, or maybe you need another wife, or maybe the wife that you have with you isn't pleasing to you. Maybe she doesn't fulfill your needs, whether it's her appearance, her character, your intimate needs, whatever it is. Somewhere down the line, there is a glitch in your system. You have to find that glitch and then attack it. Seek Allah's help in fixing the problem. And if not, if it's your fitna, then you have to just what? وَعَبُدْ رَبَّكَ حَتَّى يَأْتِيَكَ الْيَقِينُ. Worship your Lord until death comes to you. Keep struggling. وَالَّذِينَ جَاهَدُوا فِينَا. Those who fight in our cause. Keep fighting. Don't give up. Fall 7 times, get up 8 times. It's just that simple. Some fitnas, some people, they can't shake. But at least you're trying and you're striving. And ask Allah for forgiveness. Ask Allah to pardon you, but keep trying. Keep trying. And Allah knows best. Question says, Okay, he says continuation. Is it norms? Would you mind giving an example for the U.S.? Alaikum salam. A norm in the U.S. to me, with regards to traveling, not based off of distance, safar, based off of condition of the people, in my book, is a toll. A toll that you pay. A large bridge. In my book, according to the customs that I would say, or the customs, is when you go over a large bridge. You're traveling over this large, not a small bridge, a little ramp, no, but an actual large bridge. That's safar. You're paying tolls. That's what? That's safar, huh? And Allah knows best. YC, Sydney, Australia. The hadith on receiving the reward of a Hajj and Umrah after staying in the masjid after Fajr, correct. I'll tell you what one of my teachers told me in the Islamic University of Medina. Sheikh Abdul Qayyum Suhaibani. He said to the students and the brothers who were discussing this hadith in the classroom one day. And the brothers came to the conclusion that the hadith was daif, it was weak. It was weak. And they were talking about the hadith is not good, it's just popular, it's weak. Daif. No problem. The Sheikh, he said, you guys have no fiqh. La fiqh lakum. He says for a general Muslim to go to the masjid, make salat al-fajr, sit in the masjid, make dhikr of Allah, and wait until sunrise and go outside. Good thing or bad thing? They said, Taban, of course, Sheikh, it's a good thing. He said, so you go tell them the hadith is daif, is weak. They go, they pray, and they leave, and they go back home. They go drink coffee, they go back to sleep or whatever. Then what? He says it's better for them to sit in the masjid thinking that the hadith is authentic, making things and doing things which are authentic from the sunnah, than them just saying, oh, it's daif, so we don't have to do it. So there's no difference of opinion sitting in the masjid, it's virtue. The time of Fajr is virtue. Making dhikr of Allah is virtue. Ishraq, duha, etc. There's no doubt about that. So whether it's sahih or not, it's always a benefit in you doing what? Sitting in the masjid after Salat al-Fajr. Reading, studying, whatever you're doing. However, if you want to get technical, many of the ulama of Islam, they say that hadith is daif, is weak. It's not authentic. If you want to get technical. But just because the hadith is weak, it doesn't mean that the act is now useless. Because it can be supported through other texts. Or it's general good. Huh? Wallahu a'lam. Next question. That's in brief. Next question says, trying our best to summarize the answers. There's a lot of questions here. Question says, MI, Birmingham, UK, Assalamu alaikum Sheikh, and the HD team with this new LGBT, it says, Assalamu alaikum Sheikh and the HD team. This is questions from Birmingham. With the new LGBT agenda, etc., what is the ruling on advice for a teacher who has to, by law, carry out such lessons? Is it a major sin? Jazakallah khairan. You teach the curriculum. And that's it. The book says. The people say. Scientists have a theory. They say that a person can be born as a homosexual and it's totally normal. This is what they say. This is what the science... Whack at that. It's not your opinion. It's not your view. You are a teacher of a curriculum in a school. You're a professional, and that's it. They come to you for personal advice, different story. They want to know what does Islam say, different story. Do you agree, teacher? Do you think that makes sense? That's a what? Different story. So you make a disclaimer. And the same applies to teaching something that's not about LGBT, like history. In this year, these Romans defeated these Persians, or the Greeks, they were only 300 and defeated 1 million men. So that's what the book says. Allahu alam. Everyone understand this? Then Allah knows best. Question is from AIM, from Alexandria, Virginia. Assalamu alaikum, Mufti. I just wanted to ask, can you make a video on al-wala wal-bara? If it is kind of long, so you can do a little series on it. Barakallahu feekum. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. Inshallah ta'ala. Jazakallahu khairan. Bidnillah. AH, UK, London. How do I know if I'm sincere? Allah knows best. But perhaps by you asking this question is a sign that you're sincere. That you're actually concerned and fearful about it. No believer fears hypocrisy except that he's a believer. And no one feels safe from hypocrisy except that he's a what? A hypocrite. Waliyadu billah. MN, Birmingham, UK. May your face be enlightened. How should a person read? Should they give a book a specific day or finish a book, then move to another one? Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Inshallah, you think you can read the questions from the live stream? Please. Anybody got a phone? They make it faster. They won't have to keep scrolling back up. People complain that we're missing their questions. How to read a book. May Allah bless you and bless all of the disciples in Birmingham. Ameen. We look forward to seeing you soon, inshallah. How do you read a book? I can't answer that in 2 minutes or 5 minutes or 20 minutes. Please go back to the series that we've done on how to read and how to understand of Sheikh Abdul Aziz Sadhan. Entire playlist we've devoted on just reading. Please go back to that. General advice now depends on the book. Some books are not meant to be read from cover to cover. Some books are not meant to be memorized. Some books are only meant to be sources of reference. And some books are not meant to be read but meant to be memorized and taught. It depends on the book. What do you want out of the book? How much time do you have and what level of knowledge are you on? Some things you don't need to read the whole book. I just need one small piece. Some things you need to read 2 and 3, 4, 5 times. Some books you read over and over again. It depends on the book, huh? And Allah knows best. That's in brief. Please go back to the playlist that we've done on how to read. Next question.
Snafu times, use of CBD oil.
Use of CBD oil?
Question mark.
To me? And the question is from where?
It just says Snafu times.
Yeah.
SNAFU times.
Times? I don't know. Please mention the location. If that's the location, please be more blunt and clear on exactly where that is. Inshallah. Next question, please.
Rawa Ibrahim. RI. The Netherlands. Heerenveen. Is the dua when seeking refuge from the jail trials of life and death mandatory to say after tashahhud?
Question comes from the Netherlands. Seeking protection in the law from the jail, the fitna of al-mahya wal-mamat, etc. Is it obligatory? Most of the ulama of Islam say it's only recommended. Most of the ulama hold the view that it's only recommended. Tawus rahimahullah, he told his son to make his prayer up again once he didn't say that dua. So some of the ulama say that he held the view that it was obligatory, and others they say no, there's consensus that it's recommended, but he only wanted his son never to abandon that dua. So most of the ulama hold the view that it's only recommended. And it shouldn't be abandoned. After you make your tashahhud, you seek refuge in Allah from those 4 things. It's something that you shouldn't leave off. Recommended acts, you should train yourself to do them. And then they become like the mandatory acts in which you always do them. You never ever forget. That's the best thing to do. Wallahu alam.
AJ Bowie, Maryland. Is it shirk to hang air freshener in your car? As I have heard one Salafi da'i claim, he referred to hadith about the riding beast.
Question comes from Bowie, Maryland. Is it shirk to hang air freshener in your car? I've heard a Salafi da'i claim, whereas it's the riding beast. Me personally, and Allah knows best, I wouldn't consider it to be shirk. I wouldn't consider it to be haram. Is the car like a riding beast from some aspects? Yes, it is. Is it like a riding beast from other aspects? No, it's different. It's a machine and not an animal. It doesn't have a soul. Everyone understand this? Even though sometimes cars may have a what? They may have a mind of their own. Sometimes. The car chooses the worst place to shut down. It's driving fine, moving, going. You get in a crazy highway late at night, raining, and what? Shuts down. But no one can deny the reality that some engines have a what? A mind of their own, quote unquote, figure of speech. Ala kulli hal, the soul doesn't have a ruh. So it's not like a riding beast 100%. Certain aspects are parallel. I wouldn't consider it to be an act of shirk, especially based off the fact that you're doing it off of a specific intention, to let your car smell good. They hung these things from their animals for protection against the evil eye, or jinn, or victory in war, etc. However, there are many things, and we always say this, Allah is our witness, we always say this, there are many things that you do on a daily basis that are based off of superstition and polytheistic rituals. But it doesn't mean that that act is haram, such as having plants in your house. Having trees and plants in your house is based off of superstition. Eating eggs in the morning is based off of superstition. It's a reality. Read about the history. You'll find. It's the reason why people would eat eggs in the morning. There's so many different types of protein. Why are eggs so popular and famous? It's a reason why. And there are many other things that you do on a daily basis, but it doesn't mean that you do it now because of those reasons. It's become a cultural norm. It's no longer religious. It's not associated with a religion at all. So much to the point of the concept of a cross, like we said before in this masjid. Having a Swiss Army knife. Some brothers say you don't have to take off the crucifix because it's no longer a religious symbol. It's a symbol of Swiss Army. It's a symbol of Red Cross. It's no longer pertaining to religion. And others may say, no, remove it. All right? At the end of the day, I wouldn't consider hanging air freshener in your car an act of shirk. If you're doubtful, then stay away from it. Get something that you can put on your dashboard. But people, they put other things on their dashboard. You'll find Sikhs and Hindus and Buddhists and things like this. They have idols they put on their dashboards. So there's no way you can escape. And the general concept of perfume and smell goods is also connected to polytheism. It's connected to polytheism. You won't find a Buddhist or a Hindu making prayer, making worship, except that they use what? Use incense. And they use bukhor. They use these things to summon those spirits and their gods and goddesses. So you can't use incense now? You can't use air freshener now? So it's a never-ending problem if you take that rationale. At the end of the day, I make dua for all of the Muslims, for myself firstly, and all of the Muslims. And I make dua that Allah Azza wa Jalla will bless the callers to the Sunnah. The callers to the Sunnah, I said. Ad-du'at ila Sunnah. Callers to the Sunnah. To have al-fiqh fi din. And have basira. And to know what they're talking about before they say. And I ask Allah to allow all of the callers to the Sunnah never ever to forget their original teachings. Al-ilmu qabla al-qawli wal-amal. والدليل قوله تعالى فاعلم أنه لا إله إلا الله واستغفر لذنبك فبدأ بالعلم قبل القول والعمل. That's what you learn in Surah Thalatha. Knowledge precedes speech and action. So don't say anything unless you know for sure. And do not be overzealous. Do not be overzealous. Have the proper fiqh before you say anything. And Allah knows best.
S.A. from London, UK. Who are Hizb Tahrir? Do they follow the Sunnah? There are a lot of these brothers in my city. Jazakallahu khair.
With regards to the UK, who are the Hizb Tahrir? Do they follow the Sunnah? There are a lot of them in my city, so on and so forth. Be with the people whom you feel safe and comfortable with. Follow those, pray with those, learn from those whom you trust. Ask Allah to protect you. Ask Allah to guide you. لِمَا اخْتُلِفَ فِيهِ. That over which the people differ, over the truth. Make the dua at night, as the Prophet used to make, as Aisha narrated. Use common sense. Learn the basic foundations of Islam, and then make a choice. If you're mistaken, you have a chance with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because you tried your best. If you're right, they are the ones on the Sunnah and they're guided, then alhamdulillah. This group, that group, these people, these brothers, this website, everyone claims they're on the Quran, Sunnah, following the Salaf. We're following the ulama. We're teaching. Everyone says that. Everyone claims it. How do you know? How can you make a correct decision? And even deeper than that, is there a group of Muslims, whatever their orientation may be, that are totally void from the Sunnah? Nothing that they do is from the Sunnah. Is there a group like that in existence? Is there a group in which they have nothing to do with the Sunnah? If that's the case, then that means every group is upon the Sunnah, but they abandon other things from the Sunnah. And now I'm not making no discrimination. All of the dawah groups today, they have percentage. 70%, 30%, they're lacking. It's a major part of the Sunnah they never talk about, think about, or promote, or propagate. They talk about unity, they talk about jihad, they talk about ilm and ulama, they talk about politics, they talk. And if you sit down and you look at all of these issues collectively, they're all part of the what? The Sunnah. And that's Islam. Islam has commanded us to fight in the cause of Allah. No doubt about that. Islam has taught us to learn and respect the people of knowledge. Islam has taught us that the worldly life is worthless. And we should make dhikr of Allah and be attached to Allah. Islam has taught us about politics and politicians. How many times did I mention the Quran? King, mulk. There's no doubt about that. Allah says those, and when we place them in charge and in the land, we give them authority. What do? So there's someone who's going to be what? An authority. And there's a way about going about it, and there's a way in which you don't go about authority. Unity. Need I say anymore? All of these things are from the deen. The dawah groups, they pick and they choose what suits them. We're only going to talk about politics. We're only going to talk about fighting in Allah's cause. We're only going to talk about knowledge and ulama and bid'ah. That's it. That's our dawah. Nothing more. We're only going to talk about tawheed. We're only going to talk about finances and kada and kada. That's it. So everyone has something with them from the sunnah. So you have to use your brain, your common sense. You have to make dua to Allah. Try your best to find the group that's considered the what? Closest to the truth. And if you're mistaken and wrong, at least you were what? Sincere. Everyone understand this? That, to me, is the only solution in the mess of dawah today. This group, that group, no, go here, go with them, go with them. And it's just going to keep spinning and turning around. They're refuted. They're no longer. They left it. They're calling something new. What can you do? Except for try your best and go with the people who have the strong values. And from the signs that someone is upon the true dawah and the true way is that they don't want you to worship them. And they don't want you to be connected to them. They want to connect you with the proofs and what the evidence is. And then they're not calling you to a human being. But once more, be careful of shaitan and how subtle he is. Many people, they think that it's an act of piety. They'll say, we're calling you to the scholars. He's calling you to himself. He's calling you to himself, and we're calling you to the scholars. So let's say that's right, for argument's sake. Yawm al-Qiyamah, who's going to paradise from among us both? I called you to a human being, who was myself, and they called you to other human beings who weren't themselves. You ever think about that? How stupid that is? But it sounds good though. They said, we're calling you to the scholars. He's calling you away from the scholars and he's calling you to himself. Okay, both of you are wrong. Because you're supposed to only call to what? Allah and his messenger. Allah, his messenger, and his book. But then they'll say, who knows the book more than the scholars? Agreed. But it doesn't mean what I'm saying and what I'm speaking on is wrong from the Quran and Sunnah either. Nor does it mean that this scholar is infallible and everything he's saying is right. So at the end of the day, we're both what? Both wrong if we're not calling to Allah and his messenger. So any group or dawah organization in which they're calling you to worship them, they're calling you to put them on a level in a pedestal, they're calling you to be their blind following lackeys. Give us your money, your power, your loyalty, and everything. Something's wrong. Something is seriously wrong. Everyone understand this? You can't be in my inner circle unless you give and this and that. No, something's wrong now. That's the red flag. Everyone understand this? I don't want you to have a personal relationship. You don't have to be my friend. You ask me a question, I teach you, that's it. Khalas. Lakum dinukum waliya din. Keep it moving. You don't have to give me nothing. You don't owe me anything. No. You want me to answer your question? Give me this. Do this for me. Marry me to your sister. Marry me to your daughter. Put me on a pedestal. That's a clear sign that that dawah is not what? It's not right. And Allah knows best.
MR from Wiltshire, UK. My aunt invites me to her house, but my female cousin lives there. Can I go if I will be mixed with my cousin? I try not to talk to her or look at her. She doesn't wear hijab.
Question from Wiltshire. Your aunt invites you to her house. There is a female cousin. She doesn't cover. You're mixed with her. You try not to look at her, etc. Visit your aunt. If you can pick a time in which the cousin isn't there, alhamdulillah. If there's no other way except to go and see your cousin, speak to your cousin. Hello, how you doing? All right? You guys all right? Alhamdulillah. You don't have to shake her hand and hug her and kiss her and sit with her. But it doesn't mean that you don't have to be nice to your family, to the best of your ability. Okay? If they ask you to do something haram, they want you to touch your cousin and sit next to your cousin and all this other stuff, that's a different story. Respectfully, humbly decline. Make a disclaimer before you go. I don't want to disrespect no one, but you know that I'm a Muslim and I can't do this, or so on and so forth. And most importantly, you have to weigh the pros and the cons. You have to weigh the pros and the cons. Is your aunt going to accept the fact? Can she understand the fact? What do you mean you can marry your cousin and you can't touch her? What are you talking about? Are you sick? Are you perverted? Who's marrying your cousin? They may not be able to understand that concept of mahram. They may not be able to. So that's one thing in which you avoid it, or try to see her on a different time schedule, or appease them with goodness, buy her a gift, and don't, you know, you have to maneuver, huh? Wallahu alam. You have to be mindful of these delicate situations. Fold it up.
You elaborate or point to some proof for the maybe some of the brothers training and taking training seriously, whether it regards to martial arts or just being in shape or shooting in archery.
Sorry. Question says, can you elaborate on the importance of training, whether it be martial arts or marksmanship or archery or whatever they're doing, staying in shape, being fit, etc. Unfortunately, many of us have been so shaved down and washed down and watered down that we take a negative look towards anything that doesn't go with the political agenda. So, can Muslims have formal security? Can Muslims have licenses to carry? Should they have firearms? Can Muslims do martial arts or boxing or any type of art? Or Muslims can learn, and there's no disrespect to no one, but Muslims can learn this type of martial art. You can break this board, but that type of martial art, no. That's too militant. That's too violent. That's too scary. And so on and so on and so forth. Muslims, they shouldn't be in public with security and big beefy brothers with them. No, that's too intimidating. No, we should look like this and so on and so forth. Is it illegal to hold a gun? Is it illegal to learn martial arts? Is it illegal to be in shape? Is it illegal to have self-defense? Is it illegal to have your own personal security? The kuffar that you're sucking up to and kissing and licking their toes, not their boots, that you want to be like and look like and talk like and walk like. The kuffar that you're begging for scraps from their table, they themselves have the most formidable, dangerous army, secret service, secret police, military, nuclear weapons, submarines that can destroy a country at the press of a button. How hypocritical is that? So your master that you're looking up to, he can have weapons and be tough and strong and have security, but you can't. That don't even make sense. The servant, the slave is supposed to imitate his what? Master. His master. I want to be like you. Everyone understand this? So why is it okay for you to have it, but not okay for them to have it? You're doing something illegal, that's a different what? Different story. You're not using the proper wisdom, that's a what? A different story. But there's nothing wrong with Muslims training and having firearms and guns. I'm not shooting nobody. Guns don't shoot people. People shoot people. It's a tool. You use it good or you use it bad. How many guns do you have? How many ranges do you go to? You have all types of, they collect guns like what? Stickers, if that. But the Muslims can't have a basic concept of self-defense. No, that's not right. All right? As I said a couple weeks ago about the horrific event in Christchurch, if that doesn't show us and teach us anything except for to wake us up, that we have to be prepared for things like this and aware for things like this not to happen. And it doesn't mean that you're militant. And even if you were militant, is something wrong with being militant? No. It is. That's what you say now, but the people today, oh, they're militant. They're militant. They're too militant. Let's break it down. What would be wrong with being militant? Islamically. Is it something wrong with being militant? In the worldly life, the people who get the most respect, the most honor, they get things for free, they get discounts, they get off, are the who? Veterans. The military. And the veterans. Police pull you over, you what? You give them a card. My uncle is in the police. My uncle was in this war, so on and so forth. A veteran of a foreign war. There isn't a status that's higher than that. And that's because the militant people are those who defend the American way of life. Democracy is because of Vietnam. Desert Storm, World War I, World War II, the Korean War. You are indebted to the veterans who lost their lives for your freedom. So what's wrong with, technically, hypothetically, what's wrong with being what? Militant. Breaking rules is a what? That's a different story. Threatening people, terrorizing people, that's a different story. We're not talking about that. It's a different story. So the people, unfortunately, they have lost touch with Islam, and they've lost touch with the good, solid values of the Hayat-ud-Dunya, like I've just proven. The non-Muslims themselves honor what? Veterans, and allow people to be militant as long as they don't break rules and laws. Everyone understand this? Another very important principle I'm going to say, the reality is, if you look at the history of the da'wah in Islam, or the dawah in America to Islam, we all know that there were different movements. There were different movements, all right? I don't need to mention any movements. I'm sure some of you brothers have been through many, especially those who are older. You see movements come and go, rise and fall. And if you sit down and honestly look at it, every single movement, you gain something and you lost something. You gained something and you lost something. When this movement came along, that's what they were promoting. And it was from Islam. But they were ignorant. They didn't know Tawheed. There was no importance of knowledge and so on and so forth. This movement comes, ilm, Tawheed, knowledge, Arabic, ulama. But those other values that are a part of Islam and the good values of the dunya are totally lost. Everyone understand this? And this is the truth. You find a brother who was in the nation of Islam, who's now outside of the nation of Islam. He's learning about the Sunnah. You'll find him to be the most respectful person to the Imam, the most humble person. You'll never find him scared and afraid and running. If someone looks at the Imam the wrong way, he's going to be what? Right there, ready to do whatever it takes. That's from the deen. Back in the day in the nation of Islam, they didn't have Arabic. They didn't know about the correct way, 100% in totality. But there were other values in which they did have. No question about that. You have imams in Philadelphia get beat up, stomped and kicked. What did the brother say? I'm only quoting what he said. He said he beat me up so bad that I had to lie on the floor and act like I was dying, like a possum. He said this out of his mouth to my ears. He says the brother came and he beat me up so bad, I was on the floor shaking. I had to act like I couldn't get back up for him to stop pounding on me. Just stop and imagine this happening in the Nation of Islam community. Abu Sajid, am I making this up? Or not in the Nation of Islam, those who came from it, the Dawah movement, whatever it happened, Abu Sajid. They wouldn't have thought about doing physical harm to any Muslim in the masjid, let alone what? The Imam. So you gained something, you learned this, you got this book, but you lost what? Okay, same comes to financial independence, entrepreneurship, having your own money, working for yourself. That was a staple part of this movement. Nowadays, doesn't exist. And it's so hypocritical. How are you supposed to grow your beard, make Jumu'ah, make Salat, not shake hands with women, not listen to music, not deal with interests, and you're working for non-Muslims 24/7? That don't even make any sense. Just like the same with regards to the modern Dawah groups. They have one thing with them, and they're missing other things. Everyone understand this? And there are many, many other movements that came and went that paid focus on things and ignored what? Other things. So the complete way is to take all the haqq and to discard all of the batil. That's the complete way. All right? So I don't think that it's haram or disliked or looked down upon to train in Islam. Nor do I think it's haram or disliked or looked down upon to train in the worldly life, as long as you're not breaking any rules and hurting and harming people. And whether you like it or not, you're going to be on their watch list. If you never picked up a gun, period. If they want you on their list, they're going to put you on their list. And they will make and create a reason to bother you, to stop you, to pull you over, to hold you up, to prevent you from immigration or whatever else they want to do. And you've never been to jail, ever. I've never shot anyone. So if they're going to do that to me anyway, why not benefit from being an American citizen and practicing my rights? I've broken no laws. I've threatened no one. But Muslims are not soft, nor are we weak. And the best defense is what? It's preventative measures. Prevent. Before we even have to worry about someone coming to the masjid with an automatic shotgun and a GoPro on his helmet, billah, ultimate sickness. To go into a place and shoot people that are running and screaming and crying. People piled up, stacked up, and you shoot them down. Total mental sickness. Before we even have to deal with that problem, let's try to prevent that problem. And let's get him to think twice to walk into a masjid with his weapon shooting people. Before cleaning it up and mopping it up. Don't even what? Think about it. And this is a reality. And that's why we have the concept of the Cold War. The United States and its allies, USSR and their allies, they were in a race to build and to make the most nuclear weapons. Not to go to war, but to do what? Prevent the war. We can't have a war because we will eradicate each other. Preventative measures. And if you sit down and think about it, have the Russians and the Americans fought since? Think about that. Have they had full-scale engagement since? They haven't. And that's a part of the reason. Don't even think about it. Don't think about it. You don't want to come in this masjid talking crazy. We ain't going to do no harm to you. You want to be a Muslim? Come on in. Hello, brother. But you come in trying to do harm to us? It's a different story. And we have the right to protect ourselves in our religion, in the amendments, in the Constitution, and so on and so forth. So Islam doesn't mean that you be weak and soft. Islam doesn't mean that you get ran over and pushed over, and you sit at the mercy of the non-Muslims. That's very, very dangerous. Allah knows best. We'll conclude our Q&A tonight. We've said more than enough. Jazakumullahu khairan. Sallallahu alaihi wa sallam wa baraka ala abdihi wa rasuli nabiyina Muhammad. Wallahu ta'ala alam.